Buenas tardes, bienvenidos todos a la Embajada de México en Roma, la sede de la Embajada de México en Italia desde 1922. It's almost a century that the Embassy of Mexico has been in this, let me say, nice, beautiful building. So, welcome, happy 5 de Mayo, feliz 5 de Mayo, Felice 5 di Maggio. I don't know if this is common to say Felice 5 di Maggio. Sounds a bit weird, but Felice 5 di Maggio because apparently, I guess, is the first time ever that we are celebrating, commemorating 5 de Mayo in Rome, in Italy. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation. We have Dr. Sprenger, that I will introduce him a bit later. But we have 4 live panelists here in the embassy, and there are 2 panelists taking part of this initiative online. So, briefly, thanks to the American University of Rome for taking part of this initiative, and also to the American Embassy of Rome for helping us organize this panel. Really much appreciated. Why we decided to start celebrating 5 de Mayo in Italy for the first time? For me, there are a few reasons. Mexican Americans are not a monopoly of USA and Mexico. Mexican Americans are everywhere. Everywhere in the world there are Mexican Americans, including, of course, Italy, and it's not a recent presence. Mexican Americans in Italy have been here for years. We estimate, roughly, we never know exactly how many, but there are something between 6,000 and 7,000 Mexicans living permanently in Italy. We're not talking about tourists, permanent residents, between 6,000 and 7,000. And guess how many? Roughly between 9,000 and 10,000 Mexican Americans living in Italy. This is really incredible. For me, it was a big surprise, nice surprise. In doing this panel today at the Mexican Embassy in Rome, and tomorrow, Dr. Sprenger will say a few words about that, a lecture about 5 de Mayo, we are trying to connect the 2 communities in Italy for the first time. The Mexican Embassy really wants to help to connect more and more these 2 important communities. Also, and I guess you agree with me, 5 de Mayo is a great way to start connecting these 2 communities because 5 de Mayo means a lot in both countries. Different ways to celebrate, different meanings, but it's an important celebration in both countries. And let me also add that in a more global and interconnected world as we are living, bilingualism, bi-citizenship, and biculturalism is more and more common and more important. So we need to speak about this today. Let me introduce briefly Dr. Scott Sprenger, that is the president of American University of Rome. He began his tenure as president of the AUR the 1st of July of 2020, so not even a year. He was also the president of the American University of Paris, and he was the dean of the College of Arts and Humanities at the Weber State University in Utah. He has a long experience with foreign language programming and with connecting the liberal arts to global career opportunities. Sprenger's graduate degrees in French studies are from Johns Hopkins University and Emory. In 2009, he was the recipient of a Fulbright Scholar Award in Brussels, in Paris, where he lived for a few years. He did postdoc work at UCLA from 1999 to 2001. So, Dr. Sprenger, thank you so much for being here at the embassy today, for accepting the invitation to be part of this initiative. So if you want to say a few words, and also, please, if you want to say what is happening tomorrow with the second part of this initiative.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here. And I want to thank you also for initiating this friendship and partnership. I hope it's a long one, and what a great way to start with Cinco de Mayo. So the Cinco de Mayo event tomorrow will be a guest speaker from UCLA who works in epidemiology and in the medical school, I think. Anyway, he happened to write probably the most important book on Cinco de Mayo. And he'll be dialing in from Los Angeles tomorrow, so we'll have a global Zoom event, him talking about his book, and he has a really interesting slideshow and a video, and then we'll have some question and answer after that. I should say, I'm going to add that I have a connection to Mexico because my sister lives in Puerto Vallarta. She's been there for 30 years, is married to a Mexican, has a daughter who's Mexican, a granddaughter who's Mexican. And so I go there once a year. My mother actually lives down there now too, so I go once a year, usually on Mother's Day to see them. And they rented a restaurant in Puerto Vallarta, and they're going to fill it with all their friends and family to tune in for this event tomorrow. They're not on this one. They'll be on the one tomorrow. But I think I'll stop there. We should probably jump into your questions. But thanks again. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much. And so tomorrow we will speak to this group of guys living in Puerto Vallarta. The nickname for the people living in Puerto Vallarta are Patas Saladas. So tomorrow we will have the chance to speak to the Patas Saladas in Puerto Vallarta. So let me introduce briefly the 6 members of this panel, just briefly, because we cannot spend so long knowing about your interesting backgrounds. Lorenzo Rodriguez, that actually is connected from Madrid, from Spain. We can see, well, a nice sunshine, Lorenzo. He is an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, specialized in finance, and he's leading Cleopatra Consulting, a very interesting company. He began his career in Chicago, where he was born. Apparently, your parents were, if I remember correctly, Lorenzo, from the state of Jalisco, by the way, my home state. And he, after living and working in Chicago, he moved to Madrid to head fixed income sales at Bank of America. And since a few years ago, you will say maybe few details, you are living permanently in Rome, Italy, but you travel a lot. So this is Lorenzo Rodriguez. Then I pass to Yesenia Serna, who works at International Admissions, American University of Rome, and she's the founder of Jesse Cooks. Is that correct, Yesenia? Bachelor of Arts in Italian Studies and at American University of Rome. She has diplomas in Italian, Spanish, and Humanities from Pasadena City College. She works, as said, at the American University of Rome since December 2017. Then, let me introduce Carmen Lucero, founder of the company Mucho Gusto. She makes Mexican fine food, and Carmen lives in Varese, in northern Italy, in the region of Lombardy. Her education includes industrial organizational psychology at the University of San Diego in California. And as said, she lives in Varese, and she's owner and founder of this beautiful Mexican food company, Mucho Gusto. Then I pass to Pamela Kralevich. She's an international real estate agent. Originally, if I remember correctly, born in Mexico City, but she moved to Texas a bit of time ago, and now she moved recently to Rome, but now she's following us from Corpus Christi, Texas, but her residence now is in Rome, Italy. Then Angelica Arlette Carrillo, she's security clerk at the American Embassy in Italy. She has been living in several countries. You work at the American Embassy in Colombia, in Bogota. You are an attorney, and you also were responsible in the legal field in your company for company operations in Honduras, Mexico, and the Dominican Republic. Is that correct? So you have had... Okay. Or sorry, it's not on. So you were saying, Angelica? Now it's working, Alvaro, the microphone? Okay, now it's working. Okay. And you are originally from Campeche, Mexico? The beautiful state of Campeche. Okay, beautiful. The beautiful state of Campeche. Thank you. Vanessa Flores Dariga, graphic designer. You are originally from Monterrey, Nuevo León, La Sultana del Norte in northern Mexico. And you collaborated in various activities with the Embassy of the U.S. in Morocco. Wow, interesting. And you volunteered at the Consulate of Mexico in Philadelphia. Is that correct? Okay. So here we are. That microphone is not working? Okay, so let me start with a few very easygoing questions. Don't worry, it's nothing complex. It's a relaxed exercise. We are just having fun talking about what is the meaning of being a Mexican American living in Italy, because I'm sure it's an interesting or maybe complex experience to live in Italy as a Mexican American. So the first question for all of you, and please try to be as brief as possible because we have 6 different answers. Being so powerful, the Mexican culture, and being so powerful, the American culture, what is the most that you like from both cultures? What is your favorite thing from the American and the Mexican culture? Carmen.
Okay. Thank you. I think for me, it's the most intense geographically place to be. There's so many contrasts, but the most beautiful thing between the two countries, I think I like the American side. We're very practical. In Mexico, I think it's the value of family. We do everything for each other. And sometimes it could be too much drama, and maybe too much individualism in the States, but both, I think, creates the perfect balance, I think. Yes.
Oh, interesting. It's a good balance.
I definitely have to agree with you on that. But I think from the U.S., I always think about my parents and how they went there for opportunity. And so that for me was something that's really important. The fact that the opportunities that my parents were able to get in the U.S. are super important. But then obviously for my Mexican side, just it's difficult to pinpoint because everything is great. The food, the traditions, the language. I can't really choose one, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very clear. Thank you. Gracias, muy interesante. ¿Se está escuchando bien? Lorenzo.
Last two people we couldn't hear at all. Yeah, not on our side. We couldn't hear anybody on. Yeah, I heard the question. I mean, yeah, I mean, the United States is basically one of the only places, probably the only places in the world where failure is okay, and to fall and to reinvent yourself is really a part of what the American culture really has. Meaning that, you know, you can try something, if it doesn't work, you can try something again over and over again. And that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, basically. And as far as being Mexicano and my family, I think the idea of community is super important, and the idea of the collective as opposed to the individual. And I think that's something that really is part of the Mexican experience, and that you always feel connected to the past, and then also to the future.
Let me mute myself. So being Mexican American, I think both places has different things to offer to everybody. I'm a very proud Mexican. I'm a very proud American. And also I love to be in Italy in bring all those cultures in the one table, because Mexicans, we are always like on the go. We're fighting, we are making sure that every single thing is done in a good way. And Americans, they work, but they don't have like a lot of like the culture that we do, we can bring in the table for them. So I love both. I think they are great. My pleasure.
In Mexico, and I grew up, and also I find my husband there. That And
From what part of the U.S. is your husband?
he's Washington State.
Okay.
He's from Washington State, but he is military, and he's living in different parts. And he loves the food. He's so happy with me. We are very different, but like I said about countries, right? He is very serious and more formal, and I'm more like fun and happy, and we can do everything, and that combination works very well. And it's not, but really, um, I didn't. I just not live in United States. I also live in Colombia. I also was living in Canada, and now here. And what I want to say is that try to learn everything for the other cultures, because each country, each culture has their beauty. And if you don't close yourself, just I am Mexican and that's it. We all are human beings, right? And we all have the same necessities, and we all can share, and we all can help each other. And as when I go to different countries, and when I see people that they speak other language, it's for me, I love to speak in Spanish, and it's make me nervous to still speak another language. And I don't know, it's something that I have to work every day. And now I'm trying to learn Italian, right? Because I'm shy sometimes. And when I speak another language, right? But not when I speak American. But well, that what I want to say is that Americans, Mexicans, please try to learn the language, because it's so important to grow up and um, and obtain all the opportunities that you can have in any country.
Thank you.
That's it.
For me, in my experience, being so close to the border, you can say in Monterrey, it was easy. It wasn't difficult, as Angelica is saying about learning the language, because I had it since I was a little girl. And it really helped me through all my life. So, and that's how I became also Mexican American, because I married an American guy. So, but for all my jobs that I did in the past, being in those two cultures, like they're so linked together. All the companies they are, any interaction you have, you usually meet people that are working in other companies and go to your city, and you need to give them like a tour or do whatever, and show them around. So for me, it's giving me opportunities to visit different places, to meet very important people around my life, to be able to go and do business with movie scenes like IMAX companies, or having an event made for Prince Charles. And everything was because I spoke the language and I was involved in those things. If I was just stayed in one side of my life and I didn't want to embrace another culture or get involved in learning different things and just stay on my side, the Mexican side, I wouldn't have the opportunity of now living here or living in Morocco or being able to meet or learn different things throughout my life. So yeah, it's nice.
Both have made reference to the language. And we all know how important English and Spanish are. So that's a blessing to speak these two important languages. That's one of the advantages. Yeah. Yesenia?
Yeah, no, and just to add to that, I think that speaking Spanish as a Mexican American is also a privilege, because, for example, there are many people that, went to the U.S. when they were, really early on, and they were either embarrassed because, not embarrassed, but afraid to be criticized, afraid of discrimination. So they didn't pass down that language to their kids. And now their kids are 30 years old and they haven't learned a single word of Spanish. So I think in that sense, we're very lucky if we do speak Spanish. Just to add to that.
Definitely. I also agree. I have family who married American. So I was born in San Diego. So at home we used to speak Spanish. That's it. And at school, we spoke English, obviously. And I had my aunts that married Americans, and I think for that same reason, it was more, I don't know why, they didn't teach them Spanish, and it was a huge disadvantage. I mean, I remember when I was looking for jobs, that automatically gave me an open door. So yes, it does open doors. And also, I mean, culturally, you are able to understand two cultures and feel when you're traveling around that you understand, you're more dynamic. You feel that you're able to get into one culture and get out in the other culture. So definitely, it's a privilege. It's an advantage. It's also my two boys. They have their three cultures, so they're three. So it's amazing. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Thank you. Pamela, what can you say, please?
Let me unmute myself. So I think that the advantage that we have in here, obviously, is the multi-language that we can be able to bring in the table for them. But we have professionalism. We know like how to work. And like I said, I'd love that, like to be a Mexican American. I think it's great to put all that in one place. And now in Italy, so it's another language that is coming in the table too.
Well, I think that, the advantages of it is that my father I'm first generation. So my father came over from Mexico, became a US citizen, and I'm the first to go to university. I think the work ethic and the stability that my father and my mother ingrained in me was that of, to elevate yourself higher than where they were from. And I think that was something that, they were not educated. They didn't have the tools that I have today, but they always strive to take the American culture of self-reliance and self-efficiency and instill that in us and in me in particular, and then also the strength of who you are and where you come from, and always to hold on to that. And like the tierra, the land, it's part of you and it'll always be part of you. And life is funny because it took me all the way full circle to move to Madrid, where I learned Spanish, which was Castellano, which is different than the Spanish in Mexico, but to find my way all the way back to Mexico, and it's funny how life takes you in a complete circle to bring you right back to where you started from. And I think that being Mexican American has had a great advantage for me in places in the Middle East, in Europe, in Brazil, because they see me as part of something bigger than just America. That you're part of the language, even your name spans across centuries, across millennials, and that's something that I think is somewhat unique because it's the blending of the new, which is America, and the blending of the ancient, which is Mexico.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Very good comments. Well, before moving to the third question, let me take the opportunity to thank my colleague, Maite Cerón, who helped to organize this panel, and Nayeli, her assistant, who is somewhere nearby. Nayeli, how are you? Thank you, ladies, for helping to organize this panel. So let's move to third question. Let's start talking about Cinco de Mayo, precisely. It's three questions in one. Mexican Americans living in Italy, Cinco de Mayo is important to you or to your families? Have you ever celebrated Cinco de Mayo at home here in Italy? When you are asked in Italy, do you identify yourselves as Mexicans, as Americans, or as Mexican Americans? Let me start this time with our friends that are online participating. You want to start with this question, Lorenzo?
Sure. Wow, there's a lot there. Cinco de Mayo, obviously, is an important. I remember my father telling me the first time about the Cinco de Mayo and what it meant living in the United States. Obviously, a lot of Americans don't really know what it is. They associate it with some party, but it's much greater than that. I have celebrated it in the United States, and when I lived in New York, often we would hold a celebration or a dinner or a party. So it's always been part of my life, the same as the Mexican Independence Day as well. And as far as I identify myself when I live in Italy as I'm Mexican American. I mean, I hold a Mexican passport. I hold a U.S. passport. It's. I don't view them as separate. I view them as one, and I think that that in itself is a strong clarification of what I feel about myself, my past, my present, and my future, and that I have allegiance and affection for both countries in a significant way. One of the funniest things that happened recently when I was in Hong Kong, I was at a dinner with a very important investor and a very famous artist who had just gotten permission to do something at Zocalo. And when he found out that I was Mexican, everybody stood up, all these Chinese people, and started raising their glasses to the Mexican here in China. And it was such an strange feeling because for them, they identified more with that than with being American. They understood more of the Mexican part of who I was, and as opposed to the American part. But at the same time, I always tell everyone, but I'm American too. I'm both. I'm not just one and the other. Well, last year we did. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't think we knew each other yet. But as you know, in my house, we always have good tequila, good wine, and good drinks. So.
Ok, bueno, voy a hablar español. Entonces, en mi familia nunca se celebraba el 5 de mayo per se, pero cuando me vine a vivir a Estados Unidos, ahí fue cuando empiezo a ver la celebración, porque aquí les fascina. Ves a la gente con el sombrero puesto, ves a la gente con la ropa tradicional. Es muy lindo que el americano le fascine algo que es tan nuestro y lo disfruten de esa manera. O sea, hacen fiestas enormes acá en Estados Unidos. They love it.
Pamela.
My pleasure.
The same. We don't celebrate Cinco de Mayo in Mexico. No, really. Just we know the story for the class Cinco de Mayo, the Battle of Puebla. That's it. But yeah, in the United States, they really like it. And they celebrate and they eat tacos and they.
And this will be the topic of tomorrow. Why Americans started celebrating Cinco de Mayo the way they do. That is much more, let me say, frankly, important in the US than in Mexico. It's a kind of paradox. So tomorrow we will understand, listening Dr. Hayes, why this happened, no?
Today we celebrated Cinco de Mayo at the U.S. Embassy with tacos and margaritas.
Celebrated today at the embassy.
Yeah, we did like a little thing, Yeah, because they needed to have that. But for me, when we were in Morocco, we always had like a party. Why? Because my husband loves Cinco de Mayo. He loves preparing margaritas, he loves tequila, he loves taco, guacamole, and everything. So when we went there, we had it. And a lot of the Americans, Moroccans, kind of, but they didn't know it that much, they thought it was Independence Day for us. And I'm like, yeah, no. It's like, it's a battle that they had, but our actual independence is in September. This is the Battle of Puebla. Nothing that major. Yes, it was for the U.S. We helped them. We did it, but that was it. So like, oh, so this is it. And I'm like, yeah, you are celebrating. I'm here enjoying the food and everything, but it's not a major thing for us. So they finally got it. I'm happy I clarified that situation, but yeah, Cinco de Mayo's party, always.
Okay, thank you. Carmen?
Yes, my parents never celebrated it, for sure. Um, but I remember also growing up, and it wasn't, I think I remember Cinco de Mayo much when I was like in much older, I think. It wasn't a thing that I remember even the US celebrated when I was younger. I don't remember that. But I think it was commercialized a lot too. It was an opportunity to buy more tortilla chips and more salsa. That's what I really think. And beer, and I think, but it's, it's interesting that Americans celebrate it a lot more than we don't. I mean, we celebrate so many things in Mexico, even, and not that. Like, I don't understand either, so it's interesting.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I never celebrated Cinco de Mayo until I was old enough to drink and actually have some margaritas and enjoy them with friends. But really, my family, it was never such an important day for them. Mexican Independence Day is, and that is sort of a little celebration, but not Cinco de Mayo. And now it has become a celebration because I find any excuse to celebrate my Mexicanidad. And so if I have the opportunity to invite friends over and teach them a little bit about our traditions and feed them and make margaritas for them, then I'll take it, you know. So I'll definitely be celebrating it. And now it just so happens to be mine and my boyfriend's anniversary is today. So it's an even, you know, perfect excuse to celebrate.
You want to add something? Have you ever celebrated Cinco de Mayo, Scott? Of course.
I mean, in college, right? Same thing when you can drink. Well, you could actually drink before 21 in college. But yeah, there was always some sort of Cinco de Mayo party. I had no idea what it was about, actually. It didn't matter. It was fun.
Well, by the way, we spoke about margaritas. You never mentioned guacamole. That is also part. Oh, you did. Sorry. But in the U.S., the day when most guacamole is eaten, you know which day is it? The Super Bowl day. And the second one is Cinco de Mayo. But huge amounts of avocado and guacamole are eaten in those 2 days. It's interesting. Well, let me, before moving to the next question, let me share with you a professional and also personal experience. I spent 5 years of my life as ambassador of Mexico to Ireland. And it was very interesting to see St. Patrick's Day. That is similar, very different, but at the same time quite similar to Cinco de Mayo. Because you know that those who started celebrating St. Patrick's Day were not the Irish, were the Americans, or the Irish Americans in Boston, in Chicago, in New York. But it's in 1953 when, for the first time and officially, Ireland started celebrating St. Patrick's Day in Dublin, in Ireland, after years and years of not celebrating St. Patrick's Day. So I don't know if someday we will arrive to a similar situation in Mexico to say, well, if the Americans celebrate Cinco de Mayo that way, why we don't celebrate Cinco de Mayo same way? So it's a similar, different, but again, a quite similar situation that regarding St. Patrick.
I want to add, like, I feel that happened. I don't know, maybe it was my perspective. Like, after the movie of James Bond in Mexico City, they never did
about the Day of the Dead.
Yeah, they never did
and
a
Coco.
parade like that. And then after that, they know how people really,
Exactly.
because they thought that was always.
Exactly.
And that never happened.
It's a very valid point. Well, let's move to the next question that is about language. We started already speaking about language, food, and sports. So, what language do you prefer to use at home? English, Spanish, Italian, perhaps the three of them? How do you manage? Which one is your favorite food, Mexican or Italian? Difficult, both tremendous good. And which one is your favorite sport? In the US, you have many options. So how do you manage this combination of language, sports, and food? You want to start, Yesenia, this time you start.
I'll start. Okay, de deportes no sé nada. But I definitely, at home, I speak all three. 50% English, 40% Spanish, and then the rest Italian because my boyfriend is British. But yeah, I really love to speak Spanish here because I miss it. You know, at home in the U.S., I always spoke Spanish with my parents, with my family. So being here, I feel like if I don't speak it, I'm gonna lose it, and I fear that. So I definitely try to speak it as much as possible. And as far as food, it's a no-brainer for me. Mexican food is my favorite, though Italian is really good, comes right after. But yeah, I think definitely being here has also taught me a lot about Mexican food as well because I've had to look for ingredients and try to figure out how to cook this food for myself because it is my favorite and it is something that is really important to my culture and my heritage. So
Where are you from originally, Yesenia?
Los Angeles.
Oh, LA. Okay, you are an Angelina. Okay, thank you. Carmen.
Yes. My favorite foods, I like everything. I'm a big fan of every culture. I like whole foods, so I'm into the pure foods. I'm studying nutrition. I'm a nutritionist. I like just healthy food, so I try to see everything fresh and good and wholesome and in every culture. Um, in terms of the language, I am so happy my mom um, is speaks spoke Spanish to us, but for me it was even harder because here in Italy, I was still for my kids teaching. I remember speaking Spanish to them in the beginning, but my husband didn't speak Spanish, so that was hard. So we had to make one language, and now mostly for us all to understand it's English. It's easier, so they know three languages, um, but definitely sometimes I miss that we should speak more Spanish. But when my parents come, we definitely put Spanish in the table. So it's a little bit of everything. What was the third question?
Sports.
Sports. Oh, so in middle school and high school, I played basketball. I was a tomboy. It was like, and here, for 5 years, I was doing marathons all over the world. I was like, now I'm doing yoga. I don't have the energy anymore, but sports, but I'm not a fanatic, so I don't really follow sports. Yeah.
And let me return to the language. So your children are trilingual.
Trilingual.
No problem with that. On the contrary.
On the contrary.
Okay.
On the contrary. Maybe it's more difficult in Spanish and Italian because they're so similar. So, for example, I see that when we go visit my family in Tijuana, for them, Italian and Spanish is almost the same thing. So, and even for me, sometimes I'm like, did I say that in Italian? I'm not aware. It's like, there's no contrast. You definitely are aware when you're speaking English, but between Spanish and Italian, it could be very, sometimes
It's tricky.
tricky, yeah.
Complicated.
And complicated, yes. But gladly they do. And funny thing is that even though with my husband I had to speak English, for me the language of the heart was Spanish, because even though I was born in San Diego, my mom spoke to me for Spanish, so that was the language from the heart, yeah. But if for business or like anything more logical, I need English. For me it's easier. It's fun. Okay. Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you. Pamela, what can you say?
Okay, for me, well, we speak at home like the three. My husband is Italian, so my son born in United States, so he speaks fluent, like he's trilingual, but he prefers English, as you know. Then me, I speak Spanish, but it depends. It's a mood. So if I'm gonna be like excited or super like talking something professional, it will be English. If I'm mad with my son, it will be Spanish. and with my husband is Italian or English. It's a mix because he also speaks like 3 languages. The food, I would say in Italy, super hard to find like spices like from Mexico. So I would say Mexican food is my number 1. Italian is just a little bit different for me because the pasta, and it's delicious, but in one point you start getting tired from the pizza, pasta, rice. So in the sport, I like football. I'm a fan of football, soccer, and nothing like, well, the football, because in the United States they said football, they look at you and they said, okay, yes, football, but it's not American football. What I'm talking is like soccer. I love that. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, for food wise, you know, my mother's food is my favorite Mexican food. So that's I don't know if there's anyone that can, and my father cooks as well. So for the Mexican food, when I go home, it's my favorite. In Italy, we eat a lot of Italian food, no pastas really, only once a month, but a lot of seafood, a lot of meat. You know, we go to a lot of the fresh markets and cook. So that food wise is, and it's a lot of Italian, to be honest. With regards to what we speak at home, my wife is from Madrid, so obviously she speaks Spanish. She's fluent in Italian as well as English. So really depending on the conversation, if it's about finance or about business, we tend to stick around in English. If it's you know, personal things, we go between Spanish and English. Italian, she's the master of Italian, so I rely on her when I'm having problems getting something that I need her to deal with. The funny thing is, all of our friends in Italy are Italians. We have no American friends whatsoever. So, and they are both multilingual, but they speak a lot of Italian in front of me, and I answer them in Spanish, and they know exactly what I'm saying. So, and I travel around Rome all the time, and I speak Spanish, and I have no problem. So, obviously, I should learn Italian, which I'm probably going to start focusing on, but I never saw it as a barrier at all. And sport, that's an interesting one because my business partner, who's Italian from Venice, is a football fanatic. We've also been involved in working with some Italian teams on the financial side. So I don't know enough about I like the World Cup. So when I follow football, it's during the World Cup or during the Premier Leagues or during the European Cup, and then I pick a team. Otherwise, it's not a sport that I'm really glued to the television on.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Please, ladies.
Okay, bueno, por el idioma, español es lo que hablamos en la casa porque los niños van a una escuela donde es inglés e italiano. Okay. Y yo no quiero que pierdan el español. Ahora, si Dios quiere, vamos a ir a México y quiero buscar una maestra para la gramática, porque es muy importante escribir correcto. Y eso es el problema que he visto en ocasiones, y es importante que cuidemos eso, escribir. ¿Sí? Con respecto a la comida, soy la primera generación que sale de México. Ya a los 26 años salí, entonces para mí la comida mexicana es lo que más disfruto y es lo que más me gusta. Soy un poco tradicionalista en ese aspecto y mi esposo también le gusta mucho, mis hijos igual, entonces lo que más comemos es comida mexicana. Cocino y me gusta cocinar y invitar a y tengo buena sazón. Yo creo que sí, porque, ¿verdad que sí? Sí, okay.
Good to know.
Y deportes, no mucho porque a mí me gusta más el lado artístico. Me gusta la música, el baile, el piano, pintar. Esa es mi parte que yo disfruto mucho. Y el deporte solamente pesas, iba yo al gimnasio casi todos los días antes y bailar.
Okay. Qué bien, gracias.
For me, it's kind of like Pamela. It depends on the mood. If we're like talking just like regular days, English with my husband. If I'm on the phone with my mom, my sisters, whoever, Spanish all the way. If I'm with my friends outside here, I'm so glad that I found Mexican friends. So my husband is always like, you were talking with your mom, you were talking with your sister, you were out with your friends, because now you're totally Spanish. It's like you're gonna mix up my Italian and my everything. I'm like, yeah, sorry. So it's mostly English at the house, sometimes Spanish with him. And what else? The food, Mexican food all the way. My husband, even though he's American, he's more Mexican than I am. He loves mole, he loves guacamole, he loves chilaquiles, everything. What else?
Does he cook?
He does very good guacamole. He helps.
Good to
He
know.
does the fajitas for the tacos, the chicken tacos. He makes them really good. What else? For margaritas. He's like the master of the margaritas.
Okay.
And what else? For sports, we love watching soccer and football. Super Bowl, it's our thing. And also,
What is your team?
I love Green Bay. He is from Boston, so
Okay.
now he
Patriots?
has like a mix. Either you're a Buccaneer or you're a Patriot. Like, who are you gonna root for? Tom Brady.
Okay.
And yeah, tennis. That's the other one that we like.
Okay. Thank you. Well, let's move to a maybe a little bit more complex thing. Citizenship. And this is a very serious and important part of to be binational, bicultural, but to have dual citizenship is a different story. So, do you have both passports? Do you are dual citizens? Your children, are they dual citizens? So this is more complex. Please, Carmen.
Yes. So I was born in San Diego, so I have American citizenship. My second citizenship, I could get the Italian citizenship because I'm married to an Italian. I haven't done it yet, so currently I just have one citizenship. I haven't gotten the Mexican citizenship because I didn't have any need to, so me and my sisters don't. Instead, my kids, they were born in Italy, but they automatically, because I was American, they got U.S. Citizenship.
Well, you know that you can get immediately your Mexican citizenship, no?
Really?
Of course, your mother is
I'm
born.
in the right place.
If your mother is Mexican, born Mexican.
Yeah, but she gave up her citizenship.
Oh, that's a different story.
To go to the States.
That's a different story. Let's speak later about
thank
this.
you. Okay.
And your children, you said that they have American and Italian citizenship.
Yes, and they would love a Mexican citizenship too.
Right. Okay, let's speak later about this. Yesenia?
Can we speak too? No, I actually am going to LA in the summer, so the plan is to get my Mexican citizenship because there's no reason not to, really.
Parents are Mexicans.
My parents are Mexican.
So you have the right to be
exactly.
Mexican.
So I'm
From what
definitely-
part of Mexico your parents?
Michoacan. From
Okay.
Michoacan. Proud
Okay.
Michoacan.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And I think it's also important because, for example, my parents do have a home in their ranch in Mexico, and if anything were to happen to them, it's something that is important to us. It's a part of our culture, part of where I grew up. So not having a passport or a citizenship means you lose that. So it is definitely really important. This is me talking about terrenos now, which comes into like a different, but it is very important. Especially because I grew up in Los Angeles, and this was like my once a year home, which is part of my childhood, part of growing up. So having that dual citizenship does, mean a lot more than terrenos. It means, culture. It means, getting in touch with your background, with your people. So, yeah.
And well, you said, Carmen, that maybe you have not had the necessity or the need, but think also about the rights that you get when you have a different passport or citizenship. Is much more complex than just to need it. No?
When I was visiting Egypt one time, I remember I was with a group of different, they had Italian citizenship and Mexican citizenship, and they only holded me for a whole day because I was American, and there was there was something between the two. So yeah, I was like, oh, why don't I have another one? Yeah.
Okay. Vanessa.
In my case, right now, I just have the Mexican, but I'm in the process of getting the U.S. citizenship.
Okay. Thank you, Arlette.
I had both. I born in Mexico and I married to an American, and that's why I get my citizenship. My kids are Americans. I didn't do the process for the Mexicans too, the citizenship for Mexico. But once he born in Mexico means that he has.
Your children were born in Mexico?
One.
So he's Mexican?
He's Mexican, yeah, he is, he is. The other one is the one that's born in the United States.
Okay, but
one
being you
Mexican,
a Mexican, he has the right to be Mexican, so whenever you want, ready to help your son to be a Mexican.
Yes.
And for me, it would be a privilege to make your son Mexican.
He's the little one. It's so funny because the Mexican, his first language is English, and the American, his first language is Spanish. We moved to Colombia when he was just 2 years, and the American is so friendly and hermano, ¿cómo está? How are you? The American. And the Mexican is so quiet, is so more like, right? But yeah, it's a combination, right?
Okay. Lorenzo.
I have 3 passports. So when I was living in the United States, when Vicente Fox was in office, he gave an opportunity for you to get a Mexican passport. I went through the process of going through my father's birth certificate, through the church, found it, and ended up getting a Mexican passport. That passport has come in use in so many times. When I travel to Brazil, I don't need a visa. When I travel to Hong Kong, I don't need a visa. When I travel to a lot of countries, I don't require, because my American passport does require a visa. I'm married to a Spanish national, so obviously getting a Spanish citizenship was important to me as well. And especially right now, because of the pandemic, I can go into the US because I have a US passport. I can come back because I have a European, and I can pretty much go where I want. For business, it's essential. It really, really is. And a Mexican passport, there's a lot of countries that have reciprocation with them that don't require visa. So you can move around. And I actually renewed my visa at the Mexican embassy in Italy with a 10-year renewal, which was actually easier than doing it in New York, which was, you wait and wait and wait and wait in New York. In Rome, it took me 2 days. in a beautiful palazzo as well. So I highly recommend getting another passport.
You see? Well, and your Mexican passport is still valid, or it has expired, no, Lorenzo?
10 years at the embassy where you were. So it expired, and I was going to go back to New York to do it, but then my wife said, why don't we call the embassy? Maybe they can do it here. They said, come down. It was so delightful. I got it, and then they asked me, do you want a 5-year or a 10-year? I said, I'll do a 10. And that was it.
Well, I was born in Mexico City. I don't have a valid passport. Don't expire, but I use my American passport for everything. And in Italy, I have like permiso di soggiorno. I don't have yet a passport, but yeah. Soon, like in a few weeks. Perfect. we're doing also my son. Thank you.
Believe it or not, it's more than 1 hour that we have been talking, really fast, interesting. But the last is important question, briefly. What is the first reaction when you meet Italians, when they realize that you are Mexican Americans? What is the typical question, the first thing the Italians tell you when they realize that you are Mexican Americans, or nothing? What happens? Arlette.
La experiencia más bonita fue cuando yo le dije, no parlo italiano, sono mexicana, y ella empieza a cantar una canción mexicana para mí. y yo me sentí tan feliz de que recordara mi país, y empezamos a hablar sobre México y que ella había estado en México y que le encanta. Y la otra es cuando un italiano me dijo, somos lo mismo, ¿sí? Sí, le dije, somos lo mismo, somos latinos. Y esas son las dos personas que me han encantado su respuesta cuando he dicho que soy mexicana. Pero en general todos han sido muy amables y me siento muy contenta aquí también.
Vanessa.
Sí, para mí igual. Si voy a donde sea, si voy a los mercados que venden todo y digo, no, es que soy mexicana, buscando, no sé, cilantro o algo típico. Y es de que México tan bonito y la comida, Cancún, y me enseñan fotos de todos sus viajes que han hecho y yo sí, es muy bonito, pero sí, todos nos reconocen y nos quieren a donde vayamos.
Pamela.
Bueno, a mí me encanta porque la gente reacciona súper lindo cuando te escuchan hablar español, porque están como tratando de ver. Estaba en un restaurante cuando estaba abierto, que ya volvieron a abrir, pero había una señora que estaba tratando como de entender que yo estaba hablando, pero cuando ve que hablo español, pero se giraba. Entonces, recibes cosas muy bonitas cuando te dicen, bueno, ¿de dónde eres? Cuando dices, eres de México, les fascina que seas de México, que seas latina. Yo creo que para ellos es como, wow, ¿y Cancún? Cuéntame. Entonces, es súper linda la experiencia. En Italia, la gente es muy cálida y gritan mucho como nosotros. Entonces, me fascina. Sí.
Es impresionante. Yeah.
Sí.
Lorenzo.
They get very confused actually because I have an Italian first name, Lorenzo. So right away they think I'm an Italian, and then when they hear me speak, they know that I'm American. But then they look at the color of my skin and they know that I'm something else. So it's obviously a very interesting dialogue for them. So and then once we're sort of all through that, they're fascinated of this multicultural. Why did your father name you Lorenzo? If you're Mexican, you live in Italia. So my father was born on this day. That's his birthday. That's why he got the name Lorenzo. So it's a very strange dialogue, and also the American side of it, because I am American and not just Mexican. So, and then all of a sudden it turns into I've been here, I've been there, this work, this. So I think it really is they embrace it, and it's something that I'm very, very proud of, that I can be those two things at once.
As well, I think people here are very, our cultures are very similar. We find family for us is really important for Italians as well. So there are a lot of similarities between the cultures. And yeah, I always get people, tacos, guacamole. So they're always like trying to bring up, certain parts of the culture. And of course, like Pamela was saying in the beginning, there's always something that they can relate to. There's always something that they know about our culture. So it has been a really good experience.
Yeah, I agree. Carmen?
Yes, also for me, it's been they embrace the fact that you're Mexican very much. It takes them back to travels I think for older people, I've had a reaction where like, ah, but your food is so heavy, and instead the younger generations are more like, I love jalapenos. They're more open to other foods. So I've had two reactions in terms of food, but because in Italy, I guess because they have such good food, there's not been too much openness to, especially older Italians. They're not really open to Mexican food, but we haven't had good Mexican food, so it's a shame. So, and I was going to say something. It's funny, when I first arrived, I think because I was working in an American company, I always said Mexican American, but now I always tend to say Mexican because my blood is Mexican. So, and then but my first thing is to say I'm Mexican. So, interesting.
Scott, before closing, you want to add something?
I wanted to say something about the languages. I think it's really interesting as well. So I lived my wife is Romanian, and we both are French professors, so we speak French to each other. We have a daughter, so she learned Romanian from her mother. She learned French from listening to us, and we lived in France for a few years. And obviously she speaks English, and she picked up German. And so guess where she is today? She's studying a PhD in linguistics at the University of Chicago. All because she never had any interest in languages. She just learned them because she was a kid, right? And then she discovered that she was really good at that. And so I think it's a tremendous advantage for kids to learn different languages. And I'm always shocked when people say, oh, they're going to confuse them, and it's better. Yeah, no, it's amazing. So, but I'm a language professor too, so.
And a good one. Well, in my personal case, let me share with you, maybe some of you know a bit about myself, but I have a son who is a Down syndrome man, 31 years old, born in Rome. And when he born, the experts immediately told to his late mother and myself, don't dare to speak to this baby 2 languages. And the mother and me said, what do you think about these experts? Said, absolutely not. So we decided to raise my son fully bilingual, and Fernando proudly is perfectly and fully bilingual with Down syndrome. No problem at all. And now, well, my partner, my wife is Irish, Fiona. Fernando doesn't speak English, but he knows exactly what we were talking about. He's incredible. So that's the right thing to do. The more languages the children learn, the better, and the fastest and the easiest way to get a good job. Well, it has been, I'm sure you agree with me, it has been very interesting. It has been, yes, a lot of surprises for me. And so I think it was worthy to do this Cinco de Mayo celebration for the first time in Rome at the embassy. I know that you celebrate at the American embassy always, but at the Mexican embassy, as far as I know, maybe Maite knows of previous celebrations of Cinco de Mayo at the embassy, because she has spent more time than me in the embassy. But I think it was important, and this is just the beginning. By the way, remember tomorrow, 7 p.m. Rome's time, and midday Mexico City's time, and 10 a.m. Los Angeles time. Follow us. You cannot really lose the opportunity to learn from Dr. David Hayes, that is the true expert of the history of Cinco de Mayo. You will enjoy, and you will learn a lot tomorrow. Follow us. Well, Dr. Sprenger will be at the American University of Rome. I will follow online, but please take advantage of this great opportunity to learn more about Cinco de Mayo. So thank you so much to everybody, and once again, happy Cinco de Mayo, feliz Cinco de Mayo, felice Cinque di Maggio. Grazie.